Some mysteries are never solved. These disappearances have left behind more questions than answers. How does a whole family just poof, or a giant honking airplane? We're diving headfirst into that abyss of the unknown today. We'll be looking at cases that have stumped the so-called experts, the detectives, and even the most dedicated internet sleuths. Weird, unexplainable, maybe even a little bit spooky. Our first case takes us to Fayetteville, West Virginia, on a chilly Christmas Eve in 1945. The Sodder family, George, Jenny, and 9 of their 10 children, were all tucked in for the night. But around 1 a.m., a fire broke out. It ripped through their wooden home with an almost unnatural speed, forcing George, Jenny, and 4 of their children to scramble for their lives out into the cold. Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, Betty. George, in a desperate panic, tried everything. He smashed a window to get back in, cutting his arm badly. He ran to get his ladder, but it was inexplicably missing. He tried to start his trucks. Neither would start despite working perfectly the day before. The local fire department was less than helpful. They didn't arrive until 8 a.m., hours after the blaze had started. The house had been reduced to a smoldering pile of ash and rubble. But George and Jenny Sodder never bought it. Jenny knew how to run a kitchen. She couldn't imagine a house fire leaving no teeth or bone fragments. She burned animal bones herself to test it. The results only strengthened her belief. Something was wrong. They put up a billboard. They offered a reward. They followed every lead. Years turned into decades, but they never gave up hope. Then, in 1968, a cryptic envelope arrived. Inside, a photograph of a young man who resembled their son Louis. On the back, a strange handwritten note. The photo became the last tantalizing clue. All right, let's trade the smoldering ruins of West Virginia for the deep, dark woods of southwestern Vermont. There's an area here, centered around Glastonbury Mountain, that has a bit of a reputation. But starting in the 1940s, this patch of wilderness earned a new, more ominous nickname, the Bennington Triangle. And it earned it the hard way. Between 1945 and 1950, at least 5 people walked into this area and never walked out. There were no bodies, no notes, and almost no clues. It was as if the forest itself just swallowed them whole. The first to go was Mitty Rivers, a 74-year-old hunting guide. He was leading a group, walked ahead of them, and just vanished. An extensive search found nothing but a single rifle cartridge in a stream, a seasoned woodsman, gone. Just over a year later, Paula Jean Weldon, an 18-year-old college student, went for a hike on the Long Trail. She was seen by several people, including an elderly couple who she walked a short distance with. She turned a corner on the trail ahead of them, and when they reached the same bend moments later, she was gone. The search was one of the largest in Vermont's history, involving the FBI, but they found absolutely nothing. In 1949, a veteran named James Tedford got on a bus heading home. Witnesses saw him snoozing in his seat just one stop away from Bennington, but when the bus arrived, his seat was empty. He had vanished from a moving vehicle surrounded by 14 other passengers who saw nothing. The final 2 cases happened in quick succession in 1950. 8-year-old Paul Jepson disappeared from the family farm, then Frida Langer went hiking with her cousin. She was the only one ever found, but her discovery only deepened the mystery. 7 months later, her body was found in an area that had been searched exhaustively multiple times. It was out in the open, in a place so obvious that it seemed impossible she could have been missed. Now we journey to the stark, beautiful, and unforgiving desert canyons of Utah. This is the story of Everett Ruiz, a young artist, writer, and wanderer who was basically the living embodiment of wanderlust before it was a hashtag. In the 1930s, this guy was out there trading his art for food and lodging, exploring the most remote corners of the American Southwest with his 2 burros, Cocklebur, and chocolate. He wrote, "As to when I revert to civilization, it will not be soon." He even adopted a new name for himself, one he would carve into canyon walls. Nemo, Latin for nobody. It was fitting for a man determined to lose himself in the vastness he adored. In November of 1934, the 20-year-old Everett set off into the Escalante Canyons. He was last seen by 2 shepherds, telling them he was heading for the Colorado River. After that, he simply vanished from the face of the earth. His parents launched a search. In March 1935, a search party found his 2 burros grazing in Davis Gulch. Nearby, they found his camp. It was all there. His sleeping bag, his food, his journals, his painting supplies, everything a man would need to survive in the desert was left behind. It looked as if he had just walked away for a moment, but he never did. The only things missing were Everett himself and his art kit he always carried. The theories started flying. Did he fall off a cliff? Was he murdered by cattle rustlers? But an extensive search turned up no body, and his belongings were untouched, making robbery unlikely. But there's another theory. Some believe he found what he was looking for, a way to disappear completely, that he walked out of Davis Gulch, left Everett Roost behind and started a new life as Nemo, forever part of the wilderness he loved. Let's fast forward from the 1930s desert to the modern, hyper-connected world of 2014. We have GPS, satellite tracking, constant communication. We live in an age where nothing can truly get lost anymore, which makes the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 so profoundly disturbing. On March 8, 2014, a Boeing 777 took off from Kuala Lumpur, bound for Beijing. On board were 227 passengers and 12 crew members. About 40 minutes into the flight, as it passed from Malaysian to Vietnamese airspace, everything went silent. The plane's transponder was switched off. The final communication was a calm, "Good night, Malaysian 370. Then, nothing. The plane vanished from civilian radar screens. What followed was the largest and most expensive search operation in aviation history. Dozens of countries, hundreds of ships and aircraft scoured millions of square miles of ocean. But then, a chilling piece of information emerged. Military radar and satellite data suggested the plane hadn't crashed. It had turned around, flew back over the Malay Peninsula, then turned south over the vast Indian Ocean. This shifted the search to a remote and incredibly deep part of the ocean. It was like searching for a needle in a haystack the size of a continent. Despite years of searching and hundreds of millions spent, the main wreckage has never been found. A few pieces of debris have washed up on African shores, proving the plane went down in the Indian Ocean, but they don't tell us how or why. The black boxes remain lost in the depths. Was it mechanical failure, hijacking, or a deliberate act? The evidence is so scarce that none can be proven. We're left with a terrifying question. How can a modern airliner carrying 239 souls simply vanish without a trace? Let's set the Wayback Machine to 1872. The mystery of Flight MH370 is terrifying because it happened in our technological age. But the story of the Mary Celeste is the granddaddy of all ghost ship tales. On December 4, 1872, the crew of the Canadian brigantine DI Gracia spotted another ship adrift. It was sailing erratically, its sails ragged. There was no one visible on deck. As they got closer, they recognized the Mary Celeste. Captain David Morehouse sent a boarding party over. What they found was a scene of utter, baffling normalcy. The ship was in perfectly seaworthy condition. The cargo of 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol was intact. In the crew's quarters, belongings were neatly stowed. Money and valuables were untouched. There was plenty of food and water for 6 months. It was as if the crew had just been there moments before. But there were oddities. The ship's only lifeboat was missing. The log's final entry was dated 10 days prior. There were no signs of struggle or violence. 10 people had been on board: Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and a crew of 7. All were gone, leaving behind a perfectly good ship and all their possessions. What happened? Some say pirates, but the cargo and valuables were untouched. Others point to the alcohol cargo. Maybe leaking barrels created flammable fumes, and the captain ordered everyone into the lifeboat to wait at a safe distance. Then a sudden squall could have separated them from the ship, leaving them to their fate in the open ocean. But that's just a guess. What could have caused the crew to vanish so completely? Our final mystery brings us back to the modern day, and it's one of the most frustrating cases of a person simply vanishing during a phone call. On the night of May 14, 2008, 19-year-old Brandon Swanson was driving home to Marshall, Minnesota. After celebrating the end of spring semester with friends, it should have been routine, but on a backcountry road, his car slid into a ditch. Brandon wasn't hurt. He called his parents for a ride. He told them he was okay, but stuck near the town of Lind. His parents got in their truck and drove out, staying on the phone with him the whole time. They drove to where he said he was, but they couldn't see him. They flashed their lights. He flashed his. Nothing. For the next 45 minutes they talked. Brandon, frustrated but not panicked, decided to start walking towards what he believed were the lights of Lind. He told his parents he was cutting through fields, following a fence line near a river. They were still driving around, listening to the sounds of the night, the crunch of gravel under his feet, the wind, occasional comments about his surroundings. He seemed fine, just walking. Then, 47 minutes into the call, Brandon suddenly shouted an expletive, just a single sharp curse word, and then the line went dead. His dad tried calling back, over and over, but Brandon never picked up. When authorities pinged his cell phone, they got a hit from a tower 25 miles away from Lind. The search shifted to near the town of Porter, and there, they found his car, just as he'd described. The search focused on farm fields, woods, and the Yellow Medicine River. Dogs tracked his scent for 3 miles, following a path that abruptly ended. Extensive searches by land, water, and air have been conducted in the years since, but not a single trace of Brandon Swanson has ever been found. No clothing, no phone, no remains. What happened in those final moments? From a family lost to fire and smoke to a young man who cursed into the night and vanished, these stories are more than just mysteries. They are human tragedies, frozen in time. The empty lifeboat of the Mary Celeste, the abandoned campsite of Everett Roos, the silent radar screen where MH370 used to be, they are all monuments to the unknown. We've explored theories ranging from the logical to the completely out there, and maybe the truth is stranger than any of them. Or maybe it's tragically simple. A secret lost to a dark forest, a deep ocean, or a lonely stretch of road. The world is vast and bewildering, and as these cases show, it doesn't always give up its secrets easily. For now they remain filed under unsolved, a chilling reminder that sometimes there are no answers. Which mystery do you think will ever be solved? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more unsolved mysteries, like and subscribe. Stay curious and maybe, just maybe, don't answer your phone on a dark country road.